Dr. Seuss, one of the leading names in children's books today, next to Kenneth Grahame for making The Wind in the Willows, and the Brothers Grimm for making just about every fairy tale ever conceived and exploited by Shrek. Seuss's works are well known for their iconic rhyming sentences and nonsensical designs. In the world that these settings take place in, these designs are rather fitting. They're wacky, exaggerated, and overall colorful. Honestly, it's the creative mind of Dr. Seuss that helped shape most of children's imaginations today. Some of his most well-known works include Green Eggs and Ham, Horton Hears a Who, but his most iconic book would have had to been The Cat in the Hat. No, not yet, not yet. All in good time. I'm gonna tear you apart in the future. Ah, that's better. But I digress. Today's review is going to be on something else. Something else made by Dr. Seuss himself, but just as iconic as The Cat in the Hat. Maybe even more so. Today, we're looking at How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Ah, yes, I remember watching this special as a kid, right next to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It aired on Cartoon Network and TBS and immediately roped me in. I loved the animation, story, and of course the song. You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch is the perfect song to match this character, even though it was only made for the special. In fact, I think it's what made this special so famous. It's a perfectly innocent special that has touched the heart of countless people over the years. It's a masterpiece like this that people can agree is best left alone, and kept as it is. Oh yeah, this exists. Well, to its credit, it isn't the worst thing ever seen. I actually like it. In your face, internet. Gosh dang it! Who hasn't forgotten about this little train wreck? As if messing up the Lorax wasn't bad enough, Illumination had to try and throw their hat in the ring. Yeah, I did not like this. I know very few people who do. Still, it's a better Grinch special than the Halloween special. It can't get any worse than this. For my sanity and yours, I am going to overlook the mess of 2018 and the monstrosity I just showed. And I am going to review the original from 1966. I pray that those of you who watch that, I am quite sorry. Animated by Chuck Jones, the original artist of Looney Tunes, this special has quite an interesting look to it. It's the kind of design that you'd see in the Cat in the Hat special. Now remember that in the book, most of the scenes were shot in a white location, where without the narration, it would remain an undisclosed location. Here, since it wouldn't make sense in a television screen to just show a white background behind the characters, this special establishes what locations the scenes are taking place in. The special begins with a bunch of Who's cutting down a Christmas tree and placing it in the center of town. We watch as various Who's around Whoville are getting ready for their favorite holiday. As a kid, I was always curious about this scene. Where did the Jack-in-the-Box come from? When Cindy Lou lifts it up, we don't see it anywhere in the wreath. Am I just overlooking this stuff? Am I overthinking this? It's Dr. Seuss, so of course I am. We then meet the Green Grouch himself, up in his cave on Mount Crumpet, as our narrator explains that he hates Christmas. He doesn't give a reason for this, possibly hinting at either his head or his shoes being the reason. In the remakes made in later years, they forgot to leave the Grinch's reasoning ambiguous and give him a backstory. He watches Whoville in anger as his dog Max strolls into view. The Grinch begins to mention the many things he hates about Christmas, mostly the Who's holiday traditions. First, the noise they make with their insanely Seuss-esque toys and machines. Then there's a feast that includes Who pudding and roast beasts. which implies that the Lorax is looking for one of his lost friends. And then, the worst crime of all. Singing. Yes, the biggest thing the Grinch hates about Christmas is singing. Maybe it's the fact that they're all singing such an absurd song with far-fetched lyrics? I could complain about how odd it is that it's these parts about Christmas that he hates, but it's better than the cinematic releases where they explain his story and ruin the spirit of the source material. With that all being said, the Grinch decides that after 53 years, he's had enough of Christmas, and gets an idea of how to ruin it for everyone. Yeah, of all the things that the movies could get wrong, it's the iconic Grinch smile. Jim Carrey's smile during this scene doesn't nearly retain the diabolical and scheming nature of the character, mainly because the original has the advantage of being animated. And then there's Benedict Cumberbatch. Man, I don't even remember everything from this movie, but I can tell you now that the smile scene is mediocre at best. Anyways, on to the next iconic scene of the special. You all know the one.
Your brain is full of spiders. You've got garlic in your soul.
Yeah, let's talk about this next scene. Being a lover of animated movies, I know so few. I gotta say that one of my favorite things about Disney movies, and other movies in general, are the villain songs. Back when Disney knew how to make great and iconic villains, there was usually an amazing musical score to accompany their evil intent. The villain song is easily one of the biggest showstoppers in popular Disney media. It helps establish who exactly these villains are and what their motives are. In The Lion King, Scar sings "Be Prepared" as he intends to kill Mufasa and take over the Pride Lands, while also allowing dozens, if not hundreds of lives to suffer under his rule. In The Little Mermaid, Ursula sings "Poor Unfortunate Souls" as she convinces Ariel to make a deal with her while explaining what happens to those who can't pay her price. For the Grinch song, it goes on telling us about how horrible and crooked the Grinch is. It doesn't say he's like a killer or anything, but it does describe him in ways that make him sound unpleasant. It's during this song that we see the Grinch making his Santa disguise while making Max the dog be his reindeer. We then go through a filler scene of the Grinch and Max riding their sleigh down the mountainside before finally sneaking into Whoville. They stop at the first house, where the Grinch goes down the chimney and into the house. The Grinch then begins to steal everything from the stockings, the tree ornaments, and even everything from the fridge.
Cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took the last can of Who Hash.
I questioned that as a kid. I question that now. What in the heck even is Who Hash? Is that a sort of hash brown recipe, or just something grown in the Lorax's backyard? I knew the guy was growing more than truffula trees. I speak for the trees. Did you make sure no one followed you?
Give me my cash for the hash.
But complications arise, however, when a young Who named Cindy Lou wakes up and asks him why he's stealing their tree. Other than the Grinch, Cindy Lou is the only character in the special to actually speak. Well, next to the narrator, of course. The Grinch lies to Cindy Lou, saying that he's going to fix a broken light on the tree, and sends her back to bed. He then proceeds to rob all the other houses of Whoville until his sleigh looks like Santa's from the Polar Express. He then has Max drag the whole thing to the top of Mount Crumpet with the intention of dumping it off the side, where it would never be seen again. He stops to listen to the Who's crying when they find out that they've been robbed. What he gets is something different. And when I say different, I mean something that both cinematic versions got absolutely wrong. In the Jim Carrey version, it's established that the Who's are materialistic, putting value on presents and decorations to enhance their own image, and have to learn the lesson at the last minute without any segue whatsoever. In the Cumberbatch version, the the Who's characters aren't exactly fleshed out. They seem like your standard townspeople who are preparing for Christmas, and we're supposed to count the end when they sing the song as a heartwarming moment. And seeing as how you never really fleshed them out as characters, you can't really feel for them. But here, in the holy grail of Dr. Seuss adaptations, we see who these, Who's are. They're not materialistic, and we see that they're actually really jolly and happy. They also fit the tone of the Sooniverse perfectly. They don't mind that all their decorations and presents have been taken. They don't care that the Grinch has snuck in and taken all of their belongings and possible drug stash. All that they care about is the joy of Christmas. This, my friends, is how you do a proper Grinch adaptation. You give the spotlight only to the Grinch. You don't ruin the part about his backstory being ambiguous. You don't overdo the lives of the Who's where they slowly become a standard sitcom. And you keep the gosh darn rhyming intact for everything. It's people who ignore these rules who are responsible for Seuss rolling around in his grave with everything Hollywood does. To coin the phrase, so you don't get too bored, the pen that writes is mightier than the sword. Improv. Hearing them sing teaches the Grinch that Christmas isn't found in gifts or objects. It's found in the love that people share with one another. He saves the presents from going over. His heart grows 3 sizes, and he returns everything to the Who's. The Who's repay his generosity by allowing him and Max to sit down for the feast. We end with the narrator giving one last bit of rhyming, where the special ends. And that was How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the Seuss adaptation, the one that tops all others. What are my thoughts on this special? What aren't my thoughts on it? Honestly, I don't know what's to be said about this masterpiece that hasn't been said already. But I'm gonna do what I've done this entire review. Compare it to the newer versions. Now all I've done is beat down on the newer versions in regards to quality, script, and overall loyalty to the source material, but I actually did find more positives in the Carey version than the Cumberbatch version, and I don't think I was the only one. That being said, the original is so iconic because it added some new depth to the character that was never shown in the book itself, which is properly executed. In the book, the way his hatred of Christmas is described makes it think that he doesn't get the true meaning of it at all. In the newer version, they wanted to make their own reasoning. In the Carey version, he hated it because he was ridiculed because of his attempts to fit into society on Christmas Day. And in the Cumberbatch version, they say that it's because he was left alone in an orphanage and never shown any love. If you want to make changes to the story, that's fine. But they gotta be changes that are executed well in the context of the story. The newer versions failed this because they hardly have any reasoning to them. They're hardly brought up again and serve little to no purpose to the story. The original, however, does this in a way that captures the spirit of both the holidays and the source material itself. I loved how the original made the Grinch green in regards to making him just black and white like in the book. That's the idea of making the Grinch green. That's where it came from in the newer versions and spin-off specials. Speaking of which, let me compare the original special to the following ones. I already talked about how the Halloween special wasn't necessary because there wasn't a book for it to be based off of, but then there's this crossover with the Cat in the Hat. And boy is that less memorable than the other. It's more like a fanfiction come to life than an actual special. Hey, people gotta put their work somewhere, I guess. But out of the 3, it's the original that truly captures the spirit Dr. Seuss put into the book to begin with. It's the genius of Boris Karloff's delivery, animation movements, and iconic lines of rhyming that make it so insanely memorable. Well, what exactly do I rate this special? 10 out of 10, a very rare score these days. It's not a vile one, and I'll watch it with the crocodile, seasick or not. Well, that's it for this review. Be sure to like this video, subscribe for more reviews, and have a Merry Christmas. And always remember, it's good to be a little mad. Seriously, why is this a thing?